So welcome to Author Nation, everybody. Thank you for joining the show. So today I've got Celeste Barclay, who's been giving us a great talk about the consumer journey. So Celeste, why don't you give us a bit of background about who you are and what you're talking about?
I am a former educator, so I enjoy giving these presentations as a way to kind of get my little fix in there. But my background is not only in education, but political management, which is basically PR, which is very similar to marketing. Yeah. So I started writing and publishing about 6.5 years ago, and I was able to parlay those skills that I have for teaching history into my writing, as well as the PR into marketing my books. And my career took off within 1.5 years. I was able to leave teaching and write full time. I write historical romances, mostly set in and around the early 14th century. And then I also write contemporary Mafia as Sabine Barclay. So nice. I'm both an author and a marketer.
Perfect. So talking about PR, you were just telling me the story about how you changed the spelling of your surname.
Yes. So my mother's maternal grandfather, my mother is English, and the spelling was Barclay Perkins. So Berkeley. I have to picture it in my head. Yes. Yeah. No. Yeah.
Like the Californian University.
There's an extra E in there.
Okay. Not like that then.
It's a picture in my head. But in order to fit the branding for being a Scottish historical romance author, I switched to the Scottish spelling because there's a lowland clan Barclay. So it's Barclay.
Like the bank.
Yes, right. Exactly.
Perfect. Easy.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was one of those things where I wanted to have a personal connection to it. I wanted something that was historical, but I also thought about it from the branding side. If I'm going to promote myself as a Scottish historical author, I should probably have the Scottish spelling of the name rather than the English spelling.
Yep, no, makes sense. I really like that. A lot of people's pen names are just like, let's just think of something that sounds like what it would be, because you've got like a link to it. It's nice.
Well, and I have a stuffed Highland Coo, Callum McCoo, who's sort of my mascot. He sits on tables at my signings, and he has a Clan Barclay plaid on. So that's always a conversation starter for people. So a lot of people think that it's the Clan MacLeod, and I'm like, no, let me tell you, it's actually Clan Barclay.
Have you got the tartan dress or anything like that?
I do, but I do not have a Clan Barclay because it is bumblebee yellow, and that's a little too much for me.
A bit provocative.
It's a lot. It's a bit. You would definitely see me in a crowd, though.
Yeah, love it. So your talk to Author Nation this week has been about understanding the consumer journey. So tell us what to talk about.
So the consumer journey looks at the moment that a consumer, a shopper, a reader realizes, I need something, I need a product. What am I going to read next?
Yeah.
And it looks at how they explore what their options are, they consider alternatives, they make a decision and buy, and then there's the post-purchase. And I feel like through my observations over the past 6.5 years, the post-purchase part is where a lot of folks struggle. They think that put a link to your pre-order for your next book, or get them to sign up for your newsletter, or get them to follow you on social media constitutes post-purchase behavior. But there's a lot more to that for building a lasting relationship so that they will keep coming back. So my presentation looks at the different stages of that journey, and the way that the presentation is geared, I've kind of given it in a gamification style, as though you're on a quest.
Okay.
So that, it's not just me talking about technical marketing terms. Hopefully it's a little more engaging than that.
So what are some of the techniques that you talk about in order to keep those customers engaged?
So a lot of it is understanding that there are certain fundamental behaviors that people have as consumers, and it does not matter what genre they read. It doesn't even matter what age they are or what socioeconomic record they are. They're going to have certain predictable behaviors. So when you recognize that, then you start to understand your demographic, like the things that they're interested in, as well as at the age and education, socioeconomics. When you put that together, you can figure out what kind of language do I use with these different folks? What types of graphics go with the different types of language in order to continue that relationship, so that you're building brand loyalty and brand affinity, so that they'll keep coming back to you.
Yeah. And so in your talk, do you talk about there's this marketing term where it's like you need people to hear about you a couple of different times
Yes.
in order to, is that the start of the journey for you?
It is, because there's the recognition of a need, and hopefully you've already got them on the hook, so they will come back to you. They look for you on social media, or they'll look for you in their inbox and look for your newsletter. They'll search for you on a retailer. All these different touch points that they have, but the goal is to continue to have those touch points and utilize them after they've purchased, so that they will keep coming back.
Right.
Because it does take generally 7 touch points to make a conversion. And it's not really predictable how close together those touch points are going to be, or how far apart they are.
Yeah.
So you need to be memorable, because it is inevitable. Say, for example, you're on Amazon, there's ads, there's also bots. There's always this temptation to seek the alternative and see what your options are as well. So how do you get them to come back when they've already clicked and looked at a couple other things?
Yep.
So understanding that those are natural progressions into the purchase.
Nice. So in your own author business, or under your different series, what techniques do you use to keep those authors engaged, to make sure they keep coming back?
So for me, both as a historical writer and on the contemporary, I definitely believe that truth is stranger than fiction. So I do a lot of research, and they are, both my contemporaries and my historicals are very accurate as best I can have them. And so those are things that my readers know and have come to expect, because that's part of my brand.
Yep.
So conveying those things to them through fun social media posts, as well as giving them snippets from my books, thinking about, if I have somebody who, variety is the spice of life, how do I word a post to get them to try something maybe they haven't already? What does a graphic look like? If it's somebody who's like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to like this book. What if it's a waste of money? What am I going to do? How can I allay their fears so that they'll keep coming back? And even if they already enjoy my books, somebody who, we call them dissonance reducing, if they're one of those folks who worries about it, how do I still allay their fears that you've liked all these previous books I have? You will, in fact, like this one as well. So it's thinking about all the different ways to incentivize people, as well as calm worries that they might have.
Yeah, I really like that idea, because with historical, you've obviously got people who are interested in that historical idea. So you could do, like in your newsletter, and I assume you do a newsletter for your books. Do you keep people engaged with maybe giving some of the true stories behind your books or anything like that?
I do. So there's that element to it. And one of the things that I have learned from being in this industry, in this genre for a while, is that there are some preconceived notions of what the history is, from readers who have been
myth busting.
Well, they've been in the genre for a very long time, and so much of their history was learned not only in school, but those books that they read a few decades ago.
Yeah.
And now we have more information available to us, so we know even more, higher accuracy. So every once in a while, my historical facts are accurate.
Yeah.
They just don't coalesce with what readers have learned previously. So rather than do an author note at the end, I prefer to take a preemptive step, and I do a preface. So I will relay some of the historical facts that are that ground my story, as well as let them know, here's where I took creative license, and this is the character that I made up versus this is the real person. So even before they start the story, they have a sense of what they're going to get, and I'm building trust with the reader that when you read this and I tell you it's historically accurate, I've set the stage for that, because I have had a couple of reviews with people who said, this is not the way I learned it. I'm like, but actually I am right. So let's, before you DNF or before you decide to write a review that's scathing, let me put a Band-Aid out there before there's even a wound.
Yeah. You can always just respond saying, I thank you for buying my book. And
there is, but it's so is the noisiest people.
Yeah.
There's the silent majority, and then there's the noisy minority, and the noisy minority can be quite
noisy.
Yes, and persistent when they decide that they want to let an author know that they are wrong.
Yeah, no, of course. Now, with the, do you have any ways of tracking any of these things that you do? So if you're doing a newsletter, for example, how do you do the tracking, or how do you track that customer journey?
So I definitely look at the analytics of my Facebook group, my Instagram posts, my newsletter to see, what's being clicked. Is there something that seems to be appealing graphic wise or verbiage wise? Am I seeing, okay, I've had 3 posts that are similar to this and 4 posts that aren't, and these 3 keep working and those 4 don't. What's the common denominator here? As well as things such as typing my name into the search bar on Amazon and seeing what book comes up with it, or what are the top search results that they're feeding you as an autofill. So I'm looking at that and trying to figure out, okay, well, what seems to be the book that people are after right now? Does this match up with what I'm seeing for sales reports? And then looking again at my graphics and at my ad copy and thinking about, all right, what's working here? And even my posts that are not book related specifically, but they might be funny memes, they might be Man Candy Monday, they might be Teaser Tuesdays, whatever it might be, looking again to see which ones are getting traction. Why might that be? How do I parlay what's in this funny meme into something that I can use that's specific to my books? So it's constantly looking and evaluating and trying to get feedback beyond just like, yeah, people like this.
Yeah, no, of course, that's very interesting. Do you have any particular tools that you use and you recommend for tracking those analytics?
For me, I use Flowdesk for my newsletter, right. And I'm very happy with their analytics. I can see things from what time of day is most common for the open, so I can kind of gear when I want to send it out. I can also now put attributions so I can segment people. If I have, links to 3 different books and 3 different series, I can put attributions to that and segment them so that I'll know, oh, okay, this person is into the books that are in the Clan Sinclair, or they're into the Ivankov Brotherhood. And I can then send out specifically targeted emails to them knowing they've already clicked and are interested in that. I take a look at my social media because I do them in a calendar with my PA. So I have a history of what I've posted, so I'm not scrolling back through. I can, if I see, oh, this is great, I can go back in there and I can mark it of, let's recycle this through in 9 months or, 6 months, whatever it is. So it's not that I'm necessarily a spreadsheet maven. I do like a good spreadsheet, but it's not necessarily that I'm that detailed in everything. But the analytics absolutely help, because if I'm going to do something, I want it to be worth my time and I want it to be worth my readers' time.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. With my email platform, you can actually, once your list becomes a bit more mature, you can send out emails when that person is most likely to read it. So you can, rather than just sending it out to the whole mailing list, you can say, oh, these people read it at this time, send it out at 10 a.m. Whereas, so it's quite...
And I love that, because especially since this is such an international industry, being able to refine that more is so important, because, a lot of folks will think, let me send out in the morning so that I can hit all these other time zones. And what I think some folks don't realize is that depending on what your morning is, that could be the middle of the night to somebody else. So, what else is coming in the middle of the night that by the time they wake up and they look at their email, yours may not be on the top. So I find that really interesting. I think that must be extremely useful.
Yeah, it's called MailerLite, the platform I use. It's really good. So it's worth checking out. So the other thing you're doing, you've got your romance, the talk. We're speaking to the panel show. Sorry, that's what I say. You're doing the romance panel show and you're leading that. So what are you going to be talking about during that panel show? Have you got a set of ideas already?
I'm on 2 different romance ones. I'm not the moderator for either. I'm just
panelist. You're not the moderator? Okay, just
no,
panelist.
I'm not.
Sorry, I promoted you.
I'm panelist. I'm actually kind of glad that I'm not the moderator. One less responsibility. But what I'm excited to talk about in general about these 2 different romance panels is looking at, what do readers want? What are you seeing in your subgenre or your niche of romance? Is there something that I can pull that you're doing that would work in my subgenre, in my niche? You know, what do you enjoy? What practices do you have? All different kinds of things where, you know, how do I take what I've just learned and adapt it to something that's applicable to me? And conversely, what can I share with other authors that I've learned often the hard way? So I want to spare you the expense and trouble. What can I share that's going to make the journey a little bit easier for other people?
Oh, great. That's really good. I mean, yeah, those panel shows are great because you can really hear people's perspectives and how they approach their marketing and everything. It's really good.
Yeah. And, you know, from the people that are on these panels, we definitely come from different parts of romance. So
yes, this is what we were talking about just before. I just watched Outlander. I didn't think I was into romance, and now I found out I like it as long as there's swords in it as well.
Exactly.
So there are completely different ones.
Yes.
So the last thing is we're obviously at Author-Nation. It's amazing here. What do you get out of coming to these conferences, particularly Author-Nation, but just generally going to these networking events for people who haven't necessarily been to one before?
So I judge conferences by a couple of different things. Usually, first and foremost, what actionable items do I come out with?
Yeah.
What have I not only learned, but what can I do? Like, I personally don't like to come out of sessions going, oh, that's really interesting, and I think I learned stuff, but now I don't know what to do with that. I like to have actionable items. So at the end of my presentations, I try and make sure that the people who attend have actionable items. So for me, that is one of the benchmarks. But also, you know, seeing folks that I know is always nice. But what new connections can I make? Who can I meet? What vendors can I get so that they have a face with the name? And, you know, what other author can I either introduce somebody to or be introduced to? Because a lot of times these types of conferences are where multi-author projects are born. So those are my goals, to be able to see some friends, to be able to do networking, but to come out with actionable items and things that I can try out.
Perfect. And what are your tips for people to get those actionable items to, is it to follow up with people, or is it just to take notes and just to make sure you input the action results yourself?
I would say it's a bit of both. But, you know, when you're looking at those actionable items and you're listening to the presentation, really listen to the why. And sometimes the why isn't as clearly stated as you might want, but with those actionable items, think about, why does this work? That way, whomever you are emulating or replicating, they go away, or maybe they have a book that bombs. You know, what can you do on your own? What have you learned so that you're not constantly chasing somebody else and trying to mirror their success? If you understand the why behind these things, then you don't have to keep chasing somebody else and following them. You understand what works, and then you can use ideas of, oh, I might want to make a graphic that looks like this because I know that if I tweak it this way to make it for me, it will still work. So those are the things that I look for, is understanding the why.
Yeah, definitely. And going back to your thing about meeting new people and networking, like we wouldn't have met if we hadn't come to this. So
exactly,
you know, it's really good for finding new people to meet, collaboration projects, new tools. I mean, yesterday I was on the stand, and so many people came past, like talking to me about my tool, and it's just great for meeting new people. It's really good fun as well. And also you get to go to Las Vegas. So.
No, Las Vegas is not my favorite place to be, but I do really enjoy this conference. So I'm more than happy to come to Vegas for conferences like this. I think that they're well worth your time. And as Author-Nation develops sort of into its own beast, if you will, I'm already seeing that there are tools and resources for all different levels here, and you can make the most of it out of any conference, but it is very nice to have a place where you're amongst like-minded people and you can have face-to-face conversations, because there's a lot of value to Zoom, there's a lot of value to email, there's a lot of value to social media posts, but being able to have a one-on-one conversation with somebody is pretty invaluable.
Brilliant. It's been great to come on. Thank you so much for chatting to me. It looks like they're setting up the bar, so we should probably go and find out what they're doing. Anyway, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
We'll see you later.
I appreciate it.
Bye.